Well, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, depending on where you are around the world. Welcome to Inkuru Library Virtual Talk, a monthly Zoom conversation with storytellers and monthly practitioners. Our aim is to explore the role of stories and provide a space for storytelling, memory, and reflection. 10 years ago, together with my colleagues, Professor Stefan Wolf and Dr. Anna-Marie Dobier, we started what became a 4-year journey through Rwandan memorials. During our travel through hills, valleys, rivers, and the swamps, we encountered countless untold stories. We also visited 120 genocide memorial museums, sites of memory, former killing sites, and genocide monuments in Rwanda. As a genocide survivor myself, I learned a great deal during this journey. For example, I realized that for the short silences in survivors' fragmented stories are not empty. They are the loud, muted voices carrying the weight of their experiences. Their initial suspicious when we arrived in their villages, and their eventual joy when they realized we were there to record their stories, often ended up with two pressing questions. Will you truly tell our story to the world? Or do you have time so I can bring someone else to tell you more about what happened to us? Not all of these questions are answered by the exciting 265 sites of memory, only a few of which have museums today in Rwanda. Yet, as Vedaste Ngarambe, the Rwandan architect behind the Bisesero Genocide Memorial and the other memorials in Western Rwanda once said, a memorial should tell a story. As we prepared for this reflection, my sister Nyambula Blenda, a video journalist from Kenya, remarked, many stories about our past are learned from my grandmother, but most of them are not preserved in our museums, she said. This raises an important question: what stories do Africans museums and memorials tell? Do they reflect the historiography of their communities? If so, or even partly, what the role do museums play in transmitting memories of the past to the young generations? Much of the memorization of the 1994 genocide against Tutsi and the African heritage exists outside its original context. How are its social, cultural, and spiritual meaning preserved? Let me highlight that these questions are exactly why we organized today's conversation. True to Inkuru Library's tradition, we are honored to welcome Lawal Usman, Ojumu Moturayo, and King Ngabo. They are all brilliant practitioners, passionate about both research and active engagement in museology and their communities. Dear friends, allow me to highlight also that this conversation grew out my discussion with Nigerian brother Lawal. I thank Lawal for being the catalyst for this reflection today. As you can see, today's panel is knowledgeable, passionate, and deeply committed to the field of museums. And I could not think of anyone better to guide this conversation other than my sister Sandra Gasana Umurutasaté. Sandra is a Rwandan-Canadian performing artist, storyteller, teacher, and journalist, fluent in 7 languages, born in Ethiopia. She traveled the world before settling in Montreal 28 years ago. a mother of two boys, Ismail, 11 years old, and Nathaniel, like my friend Matthew, but this young boy is 9 years. Sandra was also involved in a Montreal Life Stories project, a 5-year initiative that collected 500 life stories of Montrealers displaced by war, genocide, and the other human rights violations. Before I conclude, there are a few announcements. This conversation is being recorded and it will be available soon on Inkuru Library platforms. For those who would like to follow Inkuru Library future activities, we are on YouTube, X, Instagram, and LinkedIn under the name of Inkuru Library. With these words, ladies and gentlemen, join me in welcoming my sister, Sandra Gasana, to read us in today's conversation and introduce her panelists.
Thank you so much, Omar. Welcome, everybody. It's a pleasure for me to be here today. When Omar asked me, I did not hesitate. I was like, this is exactly the type of webinar, the type of topics that I'm interested in, especially after the Montreal Life Stories project. We had a lot of reflection about museums, about the importance of museology. And we also had an exhibition following the Montreal Life Stories project. And it was an amazing experience. We used many different ways, of sharing. Storytelling was at the center, but also we had many, many other babies that came out of this project. So it's a good continuation for me. So welcome, everybody. I can see that some of the panelists are joining us as well. So we are very happy to have you here. So the three panelists that we'll have today, Usman Lawal, who arrived right now, King Ngabo, who's here as well with us, and I don't know if Oluwabukola Ojumu is with us already, or maybe not yet. Huh? Is she?
Yes, she's there.
Oh, she's there.
Yes,
Okay. Oh, hello. I don't see you, but I heard a voice. Perfect. So we'll have oh, yes, I see you. Hello. Welcome, welcome. And so today's webinar would be, as Omar mentioned, memory and museums in the African context. We'll have the different presentations, but first, Usman Lawal and Oluwabukola Ojumu will talk about the inherited museums as memory institutions, object and artifacts representation. This would be the topic that we'll cover with them. And then it's going to be followed by King Ngabo, and he will talk about the experience of founding Ngabo Museum, because he's at the head of that, and the use of art and storytelling in the contemporary African museum. So we'll have those two topics that will be covered today. So to start, I'm going to read the bios of our panelists, and then we will dive into the conversation. So I will start with the lady from the group. Oluwabukola Ojumu is an emerging archaeologist with a strong interest in material culture and museum practices in African societies. She's currently a master's student in archaeology at the University of Ibadan. Her work incorporates digital archaeology, particularly 3D documentation and photogrammetry. I didn't know this term before today, for the analysis and interpretation of archaeological materials. She also applies data analysis to support more quantitative, rigorous, and reproducible archaeological research. So that's for our first panelist. King Ngabo is a Rwandan multidisciplinary artist, researcher, and professor of visual and performing arts. He's the founder and artistic director of Museum Ngabo, Rwanda's first private museum dedicated to contemporary African storytelling and arts. So I didn't know about this museum. So next time I'm in Rwanda, I'll make sure to visit that place. Beginning his career as a children's book author, Ngabo expanded into multidisciplinary practice that blends visual art, performance, storytelling, and research. So all of that combined. His work explores memory, trauma, resilience, justice, and human suffering positioning art as a voice for the voiceless and a tool for dialogue and social responsibility. His practice has received national and international recognition, including the presentation of his storytelling exhibition, Isariyuti, at the Rwandan National Museum. That's amazing. He's also the founder of Art for Memories, a digital platform preserving the memory of the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi through arts. And currently, Ngabo is curating and developing Museum Ngabo with the vision of establishing it as a leading African cultural institution for artistic research, education, memory preservation, and contemporary creative expression. So this is going to be a very interesting discussion that we'll have with him. And last but not least, Usman Lawal is a multidisciplinary archaeologist, cultural curator, and narrative specialist whose work centers on memory, identity, and material culture. With a master's degree in ancient Mediterranean world from the University of Pavia in Italy, so he's based in Italy, he's talking to us from Italy today. He combines academic research with museum practice, archaeological fieldwork, and public programming. For his engagement with the Memory and Identity Center, he contributes to research, curatorial dialogue, and community-oriented initiative. His work interrogates artifact biography, provenance, and indigenous knowledge systems, bridging scholarship and public impact with clarity on cultural intelligence. His work spans museum institution in Italy and Nigeria, where he's from, and field projects connected to UNESCO-recognized heritage landscape. So this gives you an idea about the level of expertise that we have today. So we are thrilled to have you all. I think we can start with Usman Lawal and Oluwabukola Ojumu. And I have many, many questions for both of you. And the guiding question today, it's going to be museums in Africa are often seen as spaces that preserve the past, but they also actively tell stories about identity, culture, and collective memory within each African country. From your perspective, and maybe Usman Lawal can start, what makes African museum unique today? We're going to talk about that. And why is it important to examine how African artifacts are represented both within the continent and beyond? So from your perspective, how do museums, memorial function as institution of memory and artifacts representation, both in African societies and beyond? Maybe that could be the opening question, and then we can dive into other aspects. Lawal Usman.
All right. Good evening, everyone, and thank you very much for having me. And yeah, so museum to me, I think African Museum today, sits at the powerful intersection of preservation and redefinition. I mean, so African Museum are often working towards rebuilding the interrupted histories, right? Within dance, it is active and spiritual, and it is also socially embedded. So why do I say this? It is because of this.
Lawal, can I interrupt a little bit? I know everyone has prepared a 10-minute
Or
yes. I know everyone has prepared a 10 minutes presentation before we go into question and the answer. If you guys have a PowerPoint, feel free to share it.
We cannot hear you, Lawal.
Oh,
I think we have an internet connection problem, maybe. Yes, now it's back. Can you hear us?
all right. So yeah, sure.
Did we lose him?
Panel question. So I think Bukola will go first. Yeah, I think Bukola will go first for the slide presentation before the panel section. Yeah, thank you very much.
Would you like to go first?
Yes, please, Oluwabukola will go first.
Yes, please. Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
So I'm going to share my screen now.
Perfect.
So, good evening, everybody.
Hello.
Oh, yes. Hello,
Would you like to put
everybody.
it in a slideshow?
Oh, yes.
Mm.
Oh, that's better. Thank you. So, good evening. I'll be talking on museum orphans, and I'm going to start with when we think about museums. So yeah, museum orphans. When we think about museums, I know we often think about or imagine exhibition spaces, carefully arranged objects behind glasses, accompanied by labels, who made them, and so on. But museums they are more than this exhibition space. They are like memory institutions. So they decide what is remembered, how it is remembered, and even sometimes what remain invisible. So today I'm going to focus on not what we see in the museum, but what we don't see in the museum. And in reality, most museum collections don't even exist in these exhibition spaces. They are in the storage rooms and shelves and archives, basically inside the boxes, in drawers and etc. These are objects that are like physically present within the museum institution, but they are disconnected from the narratives that gives them this meaning. They are not lost, they are not destroyed, but they are separated from context, from interpretation, from communities that even produce this object. So, and if these museums are like memory institutions, then these objects should be able to represent this memory because they still exist regardless. So, and this is where the museum orphans exist. So yeah. So what makes an object a museum orphan? So most times it is the documentation. So many objects in African museums are labeled in a minimal ways, for example, unknown origin, or simply just a site name without cultural context, incomplete documentation. So many of these objects were collected during archaeological in the museum, like in the storage today. Many of the objects they were collected during archaeological excavations. They're just kept there, not analyzed, not fully studied. So, and as a result, these are what I say, they are present in the archives. They are recorded, numbered, stored, but they lose they're absent from meaningful narratives. So that yes, and they exist administratively, but they do not exist interpretatively. Yeah, and when this object,
Sorry, Ojumu, I wanted to know, right now we just see the first slide. Are you
I'm on
going
the second slide.
Oh, okay. We are seeing only the first one. I don't know if you can go to the second one. Yeah.
Can you see the second one now?
Oh no, it's still on the first for me. I think all of you are you all seeing the title?
Yeah, me too.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Bukola,
please.
Bukola,
Yes.
so kindly click on the slideshow, right?
Yeah.
It
You
sounds
can
like
see the slideshow.
Yes.
Bukola, can you see the slideshow on your screen
On
near
top.
the share
Yes,
button?
I can.
So just click on the slideshow so that we have like a full screen, right?
Also, it's not a full screen currently.
No.
Exactly,
Oh,
yeah.
I already made it a full screen. Let me reshare. Let me just reshare
Okay.
my screen.
Okay.
I think the
Okay,
problem.
exactly.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah. Can you see it now? Oh, I'm so sorry about that.
Yes,
So,
we
Yeah,
can
yeah.
see it.
perfect.
Perfect.
Go ahead, please.
Oh, yeah. This was the first slide. Then I'm now currently on this slide. So I'm going to continue. And what did I stop? Okay, yeah. And like I said, this object, they exist administratively, but they don't exist interpretatively. And when these objects, like I say, with minimal information, when these objects lose their contextual depth, they also lose the ability to communicate history, identity, and so on. That's why I said they are present in archives and they are absent in narratives. So yes, silenced majority. So we tend to see museums, like we tend to see the value of the museum value through exhibitions. I'll see, we tend to see them through exhibitions, but exhibitions they represent only like a small fraction, just a small fraction of collections that we have. So and the majority are mostly remain, especially in African museums, remain in storage. So they are simply silent, and that's why it says silent majority. And this silence is really, really powerful because if these objects like remain uninterpreted, if the material evidence of the past societies, yeah, are now, if they remain under-analyzed, the history becomes incomplete, I would say. It becomes fragmented, identity becomes fragmented, and this is particularly important in museum structures. So, and this silence, like I'll say, is not accidental. Yeah, this object being kept in the museum is not accidental, it's structural. And because they are not silenced because they are disappeared or they are lost, but it's because they were never fully interpreted. So that's the most important thing here. And yeah, so if the museum beyond exhibitions, if we truly understand museums as a memory institutions, then we must move beyond exhibitions. It's like storage rooms are not just a natural space. So, and this object determine what becomes the the what becomes dormant, what becomes the visible knowledge, what remains dormant. So, and many African objects, they exist, they're unseen, they're underanalyzed, they are minimally interpreted, and when this interpretation is minimal, the representation also is minimal, and it also directly affects our African histories. It affects the way they are constructed, the way they are taught, the way they are understood. So, and so the issue of the museum orphan is not just about the storage space. It's about representation basically is about the past that is fully articulated and still remains partial, just there. So, and my work basically just asks, what does it mean to activate this museum orphans? What if these storage collections are not in reserve, or they are like active archives? Like people, you're not just seeing the exhibition, you're also seeing what is in the archive. So they are also like active and not just dormant in the archives. So in order to move these objects from the administrative present, from just catalog entries to historical voice. So because if museums are like inherited memory systems, then our responsibility shouldn't be only preservation of this object. It should also be interpretation, activation, and also restoring the narratives where this silence currently exists. And by doing so, or in doing so, we can then repair the incomplete history or fragmented history or unknown history. So yeah, and if we're to move objects from the administrative present to historical voice, we should also examine the broader systems. So how the broader systems that shape how the museum functions, the label, interpret and represent heritage. And also to deepen this discussion, my colleague Ismail Lawal will expand the conversation to wider frameworks of museums, representation, interpretation within the African context. Thank you.
Thank you very much,
Professor
Ojumu.
Obayan.
Go ahead, Lawal. This is a
All
good,
right, thank you.
good start,
Thank you.
huh? Thank you so
So
much.
please, can you stop sharing your screen so that I can just start?
Sure.
Thank you very much. All right, thank you very much, Kola. And so I'll just, just get right into it. And all right, so my name is Lawal, and thank you, Bukola, for setting the pace. So today, I'll just be going through my slide, then we'll just get into it. So, I mean, we've understand, what Bukola has said about, the museum orphans, what are the orphans, and all of that, right? So my own guiding question is, before I go into my, presentation deeply, I also want to ask all of us, let's define the museum. So the question now is, before we define the museum, the question now is museum an African idea, historically or conceptually? I mean, we can just quickly tell me like 1 minute, 1 second before we just, so I just want to know if so that, I mean, we can just understand what we are here for. So the question is museum an African idea? Anyone to answer? Okay, nobody?
Somebody wrote something in this in the chat. It is a relic of colonialism. That's what Folasade Adepoju said. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much, ma'am. It is a relic of colonialism. Okay, so any other one, any other person before I actually go into my slide? You can just open your mic and in 1 minute.
Exactly. We're not a lot, huh? So feel free. We can.
Just feel
open
free.
your mic.
Can I speak?
Yes.
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay, so good evening, everyone.
Yeah, good evening.
Bukola, thank you for the presentation. This question, is museum an African idea? To me, I am a memory worker, and I work in the library. And Africans, we have our own system of preserving our artifacts before the white man came and told us that, okay, we need to have a place where we keep our artifacts. To me, as a librarian, our own system of preserving our documented evidence those days were on plates, on sand, and on walls. So I feel museum is still some old relic of colonialism, the white man's idea of what and what not to keep. So that is my own. And I will
Wow,
appreciate others' contribution for me to learn more today. Thank you.
all right, sure. All right, thank you very much. So because of our time, let me just answer the question from, from my own perspective as, as a memory. So now the short answer for me is yes and also no, right? So the reason is because the modern museum, as we know it for it today, is originally not an African idea, right? The museum of today that we know is originally not an African idea. So it is developed mainly in Europe, right? And because of that, I would say no, right? However, Africans have always had museums, right? But of course, not in the European form, right? So before the colonial, masters, or before the colonial museum, African society preserved knowledge and objects through one, sacred shrines and groves, palaces and royal treasuries, masquerade houses, elders, oral historians, ritual performances, and festivals, right? And from our perspective, these are living museums, right? These are living museums. So they are interactive, they are spiritual, they are community owned, and constantly in use, unlike the modern and Western museum like we have it today, right? Our museums, they are alive, they are not frozen in time like the museum we have today, right? And they are activated through rituals, memory, performances, right? So, I mean, like I've said, from my own perspective, right? So the answer is either yes and no. However, the museum as a building is, largely Europeans. I mean, we'll not deny that it is largely European. But of course, the museum as a system of memory, care, and meaning is deeply African. How do I mean? You all will agree with me that almost all the global museums, I mean, European museums, American, North Americans, they have at least 50% of African artifacts sitting right there in their museum, right? So that's what I said. The museum as a system today is deeply African, right? So now, whose memory do this museum preserved? Is it our memory? Is it their memory? Right? Oh, sorry. Like, I don't want to sound like this is a teaching class, but I just have to explain so that we all get it, right? So historically, right, museum have preserved memory of those in power. Who are those in power? I mean, the colonial masters, the colonial administrators, the collectors, the missionaries. I mean, etc. Right? They are those in power, right? And many of these objects are originated from African communities, right? But the narrative surrounding them has been, or often they are also constructed somewhere else. Thereby, we that have those, artifacts, the stories, the spiritual, guidance, the religious philosophies, we don't have the time to, create all these stories ourselves, right? So, in many cases, museums preserve not only objects, but also the worldview of the colonial administrators, right? Because they document conquest as discovery, they frame spiritual object as art, they classify living culture as what's it called? This religious word now, what's it called? Sacred tradition, right? So what do I mean by the documents, conquest and discovery? Like, so most of the places that the colonial masters actually discovered, they said they discovered in Africa today, there are people already living in those areas. In fact, when they arrived, people actually took them where they said they actually discovered, right? So how do they discover those places? So today, the question is now even shifting. Museums are increasingly, facing the responsibility to preserve not just objects, but of course, the community memories, the cultural context, intellectual ownership, spiritual meaning, and philosophies. So again, the question again is no longer whose memory do museum preserved, right? But whose memory is being restored and who has the authority to shape the memory? Is it the community or is it the colonial administrators? So let's move on. So why this matter now? So why are we doing this? That's the question. Why are we doing this? Number one, digital circulation. You all will agree with me that the age of internet has actually caused us many, distortion when it comes to telling our stories by ourselves, right? Because whenever an argument ensues online or debate online, we are quick to ask the AI, what is XYZ? And we all forget that even this information are not correct, right? So it is as a result of the colonial administrators, what favors them. That is what they have written, right? So even during the colonial eras, right, even our own people that are telling them the stories, because we don't understand their language, and these stories are being told by translators, which they too don't really understand, English. They'll understand just little English, right? So these are the information we also rely on sometimes when we are also making our own research. And we now find out that most of all this information were actually written to boost the ego of the colonial masters, right? I mean, during those era, you can't say a king is more powerful than the British, queen or the British king, right? I mean, you dare not say that because, of course. Then, secondly, institutional reforms. Like I've said earlier, museum and heritage institutions are under increasing pressure to reassess their practices, to reassess their collections, right? Questions around restitution, representation, curatorial studies, are no longer theoretical debates. We want them in practical, all right? So ethical labeling are now being questioned, right? Collaborative curating are now being yearned for in these spaces, right? So this is about us now moving from performative inclusion to structural changes in museum. Well, so what is the global implication? The global implication is objects, often cross borders physically or digitally, right? So now, digitally, because we're in the digital age. So someone can just go into a museum, snap, and upload it on the internet, and before you know it, the internet, absorb that information, be the original information, be it fake, all right? But because of you are in the age of the digital era now, all right? So that is why it is a global responsibility on how we label, how we frame, and how we narrate material culture across culture, the influence on education, diplomacy, restitution debates, and identity formation worldwide. And of course, this is not even about museum. It is about the narrative in the interconnected, world, of course, the internet, right? So now let's talk about the African Museum today, right? So many African museum, collections hold deep historical meaning and cultural value, yet they often operate within a fragile infrastructure, because many African museums today, they are recognized as custodian of rich and invaluable collections. Yet operations are often constrained, limited by financial resources, underdeveloped infrastructure, and so many other. And at the same time, cultural narratives require to be negotiated carefully, right? Because of the gap we have now in the artifact burger, because they took this artifact away. There's a gap in the story. So we, the younger generation, because we did not meet all these artifacts, so they were unable to tell us the oral story, because of course Africans, we don't actually have writings, so we are being told the oral way, right? So the African Museum today the African Museum today, we have rich collection but limited resources. We all will agree with me on that, right? Then secondly, political and institutional pressure, right? Operational priorities and exhibition narrative are frequently shaped by political climates and administrative framework, right? What do I mean? For example, look at the Tutsi genocide, right? So we've not have more Africans, that have, articles, or that actually have blogged or have talked about what actually happened, right? Most of the stories we have been, seeing around are those written by the, foreign medias, right? And if you ask me, they will be biased in, doing that reporting, because of course they want to do it for political and administrative, framework, right? Then cultural and interpretative challenges, right? Because of Africans, we have these complex stories, right? In a community, we may have like other, subgroups, right? So it makes our, stories or histories, complex. And of course, it also require interpretative sensitivity, you know, shaped by our communal language, our communal voices, right? So then again, we have museum sustainability. Like I've said, we are being faced by chronic underfunding in our museum, in African museum today. And so when I'm talking about Africa, we guys just leave the Northern African out of this conversation. Anytime I'm mentioning, Africa, let's kindly leave the Northern Africa, out of it, because they say they are not, Africa, right? So our museum are chronically underfunded, so that we cannot, sustain it, right? So memory as institution. So memory as institution are, recognized by their powerful role in shaping public memory. The museum, let me just say the museum, have this powerful role in shaping public memory. Now, how do I mean? If anyone walk into a museum and sees a label, he believes that the label is perfect because it is in the museum. The history is perfect because it is in the museum. right? And once you snap it, you upload it on the internet, and before you know it, the public have that memory. And if also walking inside that museum and you see any artifact, right, you have that memory about that artifact, the story that you're being told, you have that memory. So museum have that powerful powerful mind in shaping what the public remember. Histories are created in the museum. They are either represented or misrepresented. All right. So through this process of misrepresentation, right, a collective memory is actually constructed, and public understanding of history is influenced by the choice of these museums, right? So now, museums are powerful, like I've said earlier. And what is remembered, forgotten, or misrepresented is determined by the decision made within the museum regarding the selection of or the interpretation or the objects, right? So what is remembered, like I've said, like I've said, museums have this power to shape public history. Now, let's talk about the museum. Let's talk about the micro museum and the micro museum. So this what was it called? This term is actually coined. I don't know if it is coined by me, because I mean I've not seen people talked about the micro museum practice, or I've not seen anyone talked about it. So I assume I'm the first. But if you have anybody that have spoken about it, Echo, let me know. So let's quickly talk about the museum system, right? Let's quickly talk about the museum system. So now, in museum practice, transparency is very, very important, as we've been saying, right? Transparency is very, very important. So because of time, let me just go right into the micro and the micro museum. So the micro museum, sorry. So the micro museums are referred to the everyday practices, hands-on actions, decisions, procedure through which museum care for, interpret, and present objects, right? So unlike the broader institution of the museum, which is the micro framework that talks about the historical and political context, that deals with the institutional mission and governance, the ethical professionals, right? The micro museum, right, talks about how object is being cared for, described, displayed, and engaged with, right? And of course, how visitor and communities experience the museum, right? So how do visitors and community experience the museum? It is through labels, cataloging, and display education, right? So moving forward, I also talked about, let's talk about the ethical commission of the museum. Number one, preservation.
We have 2
How are
minutes
you going
left.
to?
Sorry. Yeah?
All right, so let me just move forward to why are museum a problem, right? So museum misrepresentation, public misinformation, and historical amnesia, right? So these are some of the misinformation, in website of all of the museums, all over the world. I mean, you can, see all of them, how they, talk about the filming figurine. This is not a filming figurine. In the community where this artifact is actually made, they have a name for the artifact. So it is not a female figure, right? So why label matters? So it's for how visitors understand this object, how these visitors understand the culture and history, right? So incomplete labels. So these are, placeholders for incomplete labels in the museum. They should use transparent placeholder instead of, unknown artifacts. So they should use something like origin under study or object under study, respectfully, signal ongoing work, right? They should also invite people for collaboration, and they should also acknowledge uncertainty, right? If anything is not clear, they should ask instead of, giving us, wrong, labels, right? So these are, some of my, creation on how this label can be, done if they are unsure about, the labels. These are the information for war. Then, of course, for, internet, for digital collection, this is how they can, reframe it instead of them giving us, fake information, right? So I think pretty much I've talked about everything. And then the micro museum in practice, I mean, we can just view it. Then, I mean, this is it in a nutshell. Then building a shared responsibility. Like I've said, everyone is a knowledge holder. In the community where we come from, Africa, everyone is a community shareholder. So, and again, public knowledge and sacred knowledge. We should know by now that in Africa, we have sacred knowledge, those knowledge that are, that will be consumed by, people in that particular community, not for everyone. So we should be responsible while we are trying to, share information. Of course, we should share. Then we should also continue reviewing and correcting all this information we are putting out, because day by day we keep on researching and we keep on, reviewing documents, reviewing history and all. Then the call to action for me, I urge, individuals, institutions, and community to, participate actively as researchers, educators, and they should be truthful about inclusion and historical records. Then this is my conclusion and disclaimer. And thank you very much for your attention, and thank you for joining me in shaping more truthful and inclusion in memory. Thank you very much. My name is Usman Lawal.
Thank you. Thank you, both of you. Thank you, Lawal. Thank you, Ojumu, for this amazing presentation. I think we could have spent like 3 hours just talking about this. So I invite people. Already Nathaniel is shared a question in the chat. So I invite all of you to share questions that you may have for the 2 first panelists, but also for the third one that we are going to welcome now. So King Ngabo is going to talk to us about the experience of founding a museum, the Ngabo Museum, and the use of art and storytelling in the contemporary African museum. So we invite you, Ngabo, to have the floor. And then after his presentation, we will have a Q&A with all of you in the room with us. But in the meantime, if you have any question, don't hesitate to put it in the chat. King Ngabo, are you ready?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
All right. So I'm gonna be sharing into 2 parts. I'm gonna present in just a talk, and then later I'm gonna show you through my booklet what we actually do, like an image of what we are currently doing. You requested me to talk about the experience of founding Museum in Ngabo and the use of art and storytelling in contemporary African museums. So you talked about my biography, but also you forget to mention that I was born after genocide in 1996, and born in the post-genocide generation, where we grew up, where story means a lot to us, where our mothers has nothing to say, but our eyes has something to witness, because how they suffered, they couldn't share, but we could even feel it by ourselves, because the silence in our house was the greatest story to tell. The pain in our house was the greatest story to tell. The commemoration each year, which is like a feast in Western countries, was a story to tell. So at the end, we grow up where story is silence, but at the end, a lesson to learn from our generation whom we grow up and raised in this country, in Rwanda. So that's why my work works on memory, trauma, resilience, justice, and human suffering. Because I've seen that art, me personally, I'm an artist, I've seen that art can be a voice to a voiceless and being a tool for dialogue and social responsibility. So the idea of Museum Ngabo comes from not even far. 4 years ago, when I had a privilege to exhibit in the National Museum, honestly speaking, I had no more information about museums, what it's meant to be in the museum, to exhibit in the National Museum in Parliament. As a young artist, an innocent artist who created just by passion, intentionally, what I really wanted to tell people was about the liberation struggle of our country through 14 artworks. And then instead of just putting them in my small studio, they decided to take it in the National Museum, which was something that was normal back then, but today that I cherish as something that is that's paved my way to be where I am today. So Museum Ngabo is an idea that comes from there, where I started to question myself. Is it possible to somebody can create a space where people can learn through his work or somebody's work or a community work or something? And then through research, I had a privilege to visit several countries like Senegal, Germany, Europe, with some other countries where I just talked to fellow artists and then discover, even if it's not possible in Western countries, we still have a place to us in Africa to contribute and have a place. So that's where I came up with an idea to create a contemporary African storytelling and art museum, which is dedicated to African culture, art, memory, and community. So the museum serves as a space for creative expression, historical reflection through installations, through exhibitions, and different kind of things, and community engagement. So through art and storytelling, we aim to preserve, of course, our African culture heritage. If you can see, Ngabo means, it's not my name. Sometimes they confuse it to think King Ngabo as my name and Ngabo. Ngabo means shield, which means protection. So if you can see, I'm going to show you the logo is the fingerprint, which show the authenticity of our only African stories. And when you visit the museum, you will see two shields. On the small amphitheater we have, you're going to see two shields. That one protect Africa, the two shield, the inside there is an Africa. My intention, even if it's still a long journey to go, but intentionally I'm willing to tell our own stories as they are, through art, through storytelling, through writing, not just to be told by somebody else who is not in their country. So that's why we initiated this project, to tell our very own stories the way we know with them. So at the end, since the establishment, we have several impacts, like community project. Like you saw in my biography, they lead a project that's called Art for Memories. It's a project we started 2023, 3 years ago, during commemoration, through my conversation with a genocide survivor who told me that he no longer have pictures for their family member. And then my question was, how do you explain then to your children about their grandpa? And so they say, no, each and old person is their grandpa. So it's pushed me to think way more beyond, how can we do something? So in my studio, I'm always welcoming young students from Nyundo School of Arts. So when they came to my studio, we do sketches. Sometimes we draw those famous people who are not even going to recognize that at the end of the day, we are going to, they are going to even recognize that we did what we did. Like we paint while we are learning. But at the end, I come up with an idea to say, what if we ask people if they have damaged pictures in their homes, and then they can send to us, and then we bring them back to life. And then while we are learning, we also giving back to the people. And then bravery, I wrote on my social media and saying, please send the pictures, the matched ones that you have for your family member who you lost in the 1994 genocide. And then that's where the project started. So I didn't want people to think maybe it's a project for money or something. So I just come up, how can I call it? I say, an art for memories. And then people, same night, they send more than 60 pictures. I feel like, how am I going to do this? I have another job. Which kind of a way I'm going to do this? So I try to convince my young artists in the studio and then try to tell them, you know what? Maybe the reason why we don't get money, maybe the reason why we don't get clients is because the people who have money now in our country has been affected by art. So I just tried to went deep, how Kangura participated. I educated them and convinced them. And then we started together a community impact. And then the more we get more pictures, the more we get lost who sent the picture. And then I feel like, how am I going to do this? So you receive many photos on your WhatsApp and then many more. And when you're done to do them, you don't remember who sent the picture. It's so confusing. And then imagine a damaged picture, which is so damaged, and then you bring it back and then you lost someone. So that's where the idea to say, okay, let me create a mobile application and web application, www.artformemories.com, and then you can go to Apple Store and Google Store and then find artformemories.com. Art for Memories application. People are gonna be preserving memory. Sending their memory, we preserve them, and they can find them there on our wall there on web without having more stories in our WhatsApp. So let alone that's how we open it. But at the end, it's not only about the picture. I started a conversation with my fellow young people because we still have a problem in our curriculum to tell our stories. How can we tell genocide in our stories? So I started to question them. Apart from 7 days of commemoration, do you get time to read books from genocide survivors, to listen their stories, to at least listen testimonies or not? So many of them, in 100 people I asked, 4 are the only one who told me sometime. Yeah, we sometimes have a conversation at home. So that's where we started listening testimonies. And then those testimonies we turn into short stories. You can see it on our website. And then those short stories, we illustrate them for the useful of the story. Now we are looking how we can work with psychologists. You know how like Netflix, how it works. Sometimes publishers say, this movie dedicated for the people of 10 years, 15 years. So we are looking how testimonies can be dedicated for children of 5 years, 10 years, 6 years, and so on and so forth. Maybe in the next project to come, we're going to present that one. But that's the mission of the project. So we have another project that's called Abana Art. Abana in Kinyarwanda means children. So it's a project that we introduced to public primary schools art. So where we visit them at school, we provide materials, and then later after, we select good ones in marks and talent, and then we invite them in Kigali to let them know it's possible. I took them to Parliament, to some museums here in Kigali, in my space, in different libraries and cultural centers, to let them know you might be living away from the city, but the city belongs to you, the success belongs to you in one way or another. So we have another project that's called the Inkuru Rap, which is not Inkuru as we are on today. It's a project, it's an incubation program for young people between 16 to 25, where we focus on literary and performing art. Because always in my message, I receive young students from high school. King, I'm a good poet. I think you can help me to write. And then I feel like those children, when I give them platform, they're not delivering, but they're willing. So we have an annually session where they come and learn from the best artists in the country. So we also have education and institution partnership by now. Since 2023, I'm happily telling you that we have welcomed more than 30 institutions, artistical institutions, educational institutions, including them. We have welcomed Rwanda Military Academy. We have welcomed Harvard University. The student of Harvard University, I gave them a workshop. We have welcomed National Police College, Baylor University, Buffalo State University, Kepler College, African Leadership University, Beijing Foreign Studies, University of Washington, University of Global Health Equity. So I created a space where my art become a lesson to people, where they can learn our stories on one way or another, because all the exhibitions that are in the museum by now, it's my own creations. So we have also youth and artist development, where we each I have my studio there that's called Ejo. Ejo in Kinyarwanda, the people who don't know Kinyarwanda, Ejo means yesterday and tomorrow at the same time. So it's a very useful, my studio, it's called Studio Ejo, which stands as a voice for yesterday and a dream for the future. So we support young students from Nyundo. They came to my studio when they finished their studies, and then I give them guidelines, and sometimes I provide materials and let them create. And annually, we receive internships from University of Rwanda students, between 10 students and to 15. So they function not only as an exhibition spot, but as a laboratory for an artistic growth and professional development. So museum in Africa in the 21st century. So if I try to let you know, according to UNESCO in 2026, Africa has estimated only 900 to 1,000 to 1,000 museums that is registered by UNESCO by now in Africa, in the whole continent. So this continent represents less than 1% of the world museums, which shows that it's approximately 0.8 to 0.9%. So in all those museums in Africa, only about 5% have comprehensive digital collection or online content. So you sometimes find, like, for example, when you visit museums here, what you visit this year, that's what you're gonna find next year in the museum here in Rwanda. No new collections, nothing at all. It's like a barrier of information. It's like they bury information somewhere, and then when you get the information, they don't want to develop more, because I don't know yet if it's about lack of knowledge, because maybe I might be an enthusiast in knowing how we can just change things, but at the end, I feel like it's a task for the people in charge to think how we can think not only about the past, but also how we can project the future. And this reveals that there is a structure gap and transformative opportunity. Of course, 21st century calls for expansion of museum infrastructures, strong preservation system, digital transformation, and increased accessible on global visibility. But how? We are in 21st century, not the same way it was in 70s, 80s, 90s. Today we are fighting with ChatGPT, AI. How can we do art that help people in 21st century? How we can present museums in Africa on one way or another. So on my topic that you requested me to talk, the use of art and storytelling in contemporary museum, the question we have to ask ourselves, do we have stories to tell? That's the first question. The second, who should we tell the story? Who's supposed to tell those stories? And then the third one, what methodology should we use? Is another question. So if I try to respond myself, I would like to let you know, of course, we have powerful stories rooted in culture, history, political identity, and resilience. But who should tell those stories? So contemporary museum must become living space where stories are not only preserved, but actively shared, questioned, and reinterpreted. And young people and African contemporary artists must collaborate with museums. It's a must. And if there is people who work in museums, they have to make a room for young artists, educate them about their stories, and help them to, sometimes it hurts me when you find I'm talking to my fellow artists, and some of them, they tell you, like, I'm not involved in politics. I'm not involved in this. I'm not involved in past. I'm not involved. So I'm asking which kind of artist you are. If you're not involved in the history, which story, like many artists no longer being interested, because if I create something which is political, I don't have a place to exhibit it. nobody who to support those projects. So we need research-based exhibition and of course dialogue programs. So I think museum can foster deeper understanding within community, and government officials and cultural leaders must also embrace change and supporting innovation, artistic freedom, and youth participation. And art and storytelling in contemporary museum are not only tools for preservation, they are instruments of education, memory, and collective transformation. So the last point, it's a call to African museums. Africa must embrace contemporary artistic voice. The second, invest in digital transformation. And then the third, we must empower youth participation in museums. And then build research-driven cultural institutions. And the last, move from static preservation to active storytelling. Static preservation, I don't think we still need such kind. Yes, it's good to let us know what happened, but how? If you see, for example, I'm going to give you the story letter. If you visit Holocaust Museum in Berlin or in New York, so they know that static preservation is no longer a way of using. They are using active storytelling. How? They are inviting young Jews artists who have a story to tell regard to Holocaust, and then they are making exhibitions, storytelling, poetry, and then that's what they're exhibiting in those museums. Even if static preservation are so important, they give them information, but we need also another way of perspective, how people can learn and be interested to know more. If the world is not interested in politics, okay, let them find them where they are and then teach them our stories regard to what they are looking for. So the future of African museums lies in collaboration, innovation, and courage. And museum must only protect the past, but also they must shape the future. So I'm gonna show you a little bit about. I don't know how many minutes left.
We have 3 more minutes.
3 more minutes. That's a lot. So let me show you maybe. Yeah, screen, right? Okay, start broadcast. Okay. Can you see my screen now?
Yes.
All right.
Perfect.
So actually, as I told you, museum, we opened it 2 years ago, where the city of Kigali and RDB offered me a space. And then it was an abandoned space that I transformed into a living space. And you can see this is a small, it's too small, it's not too big, but too small, but not yet enough, but it's enough by now because we don't have means by now. So you can see the people came, we gathered. This is the small amphitheater we have, that's the smaller museum. So this is a theater practice that we had. So this is when I was exhibiting my exhibition that's called Inzira Inzitane, which means the hardship path, which narrates the story of Rwanda from 1994 to 2024. So our audience are tourists, Rwandans, students, and survivors. So those are the impact. So this is the project Art for Memories. You can find it on Google Play and Apple Store, or work on www.artformemories.com. So those are the projects I was telling you, Abanana Arts, the project that is aiming to introduce public primary school arts to public schools in Rwanda. So we do school outreach where we visit them, we provide materials, we show them how it's so important. Those are some of the schools in Bugesera district, in Rulindo district, and also in Kamonyi district. And then we select some students, we bring them to where I work. This is the cultural center that I'm working on. The only black color is the only space that I own in this space. Those are the students. They were passing by. This is my installation in Inzira Inzitane. This is my studio. This is the library. This is on the parliament. If you can see very well, this is museum for campaign against genocide. I pay them, but you can see I'm in my uniform as a painter to let them know that it's not about ties, not about costume that make a human being. So I take them to parliament while dressing my uniform in studio. You can see, I don't know if you're seeing it, but I know you can. You can see it. You can see I'm taking them to high spaces, not just to tell them that you need to have a tie, you need to be formal, you need to only have discipline and a knowledge that can take you to some places. So this is the Inkuru Lab that we work. This is the students we were collaborating with. So those are the institutions we have welcomed so far in 2024 and 2025. We received 13th in 2024 and 13th in 2024. You can see those are the University, National Police. This is the Rwanda Military Academy that visited museum. I might be the only artist in this country who have been honored to welcome the military people. Those are the African, there's Nigerians, Ghanaians. It's an international school here that's welcome high officers with the rank from major to generals here in Rwanda. So this is Harvard, listening to stories. If you can see, this is a story that's called Football Saved Us. It's a story of Eli Kejen Morangwa, a survivor of genocide, who was a goalkeeper for Rayo Sports. So it's an exhibition of 9 artworks, but telling in through, I just narrate the whole story of genocide through those paintings. You can see the young student in my studio from Nyundo School of Art. So I gave them workshop to draw, to do things. So you can see university student from University of Rwanda. This is when I was creating one of my installations that's called Kamwe, which means one. It's a story related to one outfit genocide survivors dressed from 1994 from April 7th to July 4th. So this is the way of processing with a French photographer who came to take my process of transforming clothes. So we welcome people and teach them cultural institution. Maybe I can show you a little bit about my some of my work. Maybe you can invite me in your space. This is my biography portfolio for 2024. This is Illusion. It's a collection of 5 paintings, maybe not about this, but this is the installation that's called Inzira Inzitane, which is a psychological work through an art installation that helps people to understand one's difficult roots from 1994 through 40 metal barrows that represent 40 years after the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi. If you can see, this is how it is. It's installed at the museum. People can walk through them, but before walking through them, they firstly understand the journey of Rwanda from 1994 to 2024. This is my collection that's called Isinzi, which means the word I know. So we are looking how we can exhibit this in Montreal for Sandra's home with my co-worker that we work together. So this is the beauty in beauty, the connection. This came from the idea. This is a painting that I created on woven mats. The idea of respecting craftsmanship. You see in the museums in Europe, people are just like, you see the artifact, but instead of giving a name to the one who made the artifact, they're saying this artifact came from Benin, it comes from Nigeria, but is it the whole Nigeria who made the piece? So this has come from the voice of past and present. Maybe I can show you the 2025 as well, as I'm concluding. So this is the installation Kamwe that I was telling you, 100 days of this, 100 days in one outfit. By now, I work closely to Ibuka, so where I collect testimonies from Ibuka and then work on them, finding some Leo installation that I can show to people. So this is one of it's from research. I asked people, do you remember the clothes you were wearing during the 1994 genocide? So they gave me responses. I remember the short and t-shirts I was wearing, they had hardened like a rock. Another one say, I was wearing a blue dress, I remember it vividly, it's changed to color. And I can't even describe, but it's remaining in my memory. And then several people give me a response. And then I started collecting clothes similar to what they used to dress. And then I turned into 100 days, like 100 days of rain, 100 days of swamp, molds, and blood in bodies. And then those are how it comes in. And it's still exhibited in the museum, you can see. But we tell stories of survivor because we once told the story of victims, not yet the survivors. So we are looking at how we can even survivor can be hard, even if they are few. Their stories matters too. So you can see those are the milk pot that become blood pot. This is homely, back then Amatongo, where we used to live. You can see the destruction of home. This is the blood pot, which was milk pot back then. You can see the heart, everything. So you can see people sometimes they always came to visit the exhibition. So this is the different amount is a work that I'm developing today regards on the, we are different, but we have the same one. So this exhibition was exhibited there at the museum, but it will be shipped to Switzerland in a few days ago. In May. So this is another exhibition that's called Notre Village, that related to like the African village. You can see this one is called Home. This one is called Last Game. This one is called Femme Noire. This one is called The Hands of My Mother. And then this one is called The Elders. This one is called Stressless Sisters. And then this one is called Our Mother Being Raped. Is an artwork that I created recent that is in my museums. When we are in the war, women and children are facing wars double, if I can say. They are facing like rape, killing, and so on and so forth. So I just made this to honor them. So you can see those are some of my paintings that I created. But what I really want to show you, which is the recent one, it's got The Calling of Children, which is an installation of peace and protection. Across the world, war has become a language. Even today, we know that there is a war for America and Israel toward Iran. Across the world has become a language that is heard everywhere, and it speaks louder than peace. Mothers and children are calling to survive in fragile shelter. They flee their homes, working through war zones where every step is a choice between life and death. On the front line, soldiers build walls of sandbags to shield themselves from bullets and explosion. Yet children have nowhere to hide. But what if those sandbags were built for protection of children to ensure their right to live in safety and peace? The calling of children is a reminder to the world that every human being deserves peace, dignity, and right to live. No one deserves to be killed. When children call for protection, they call not only for themselves, but for their parents, their right, and their chance to grow into responsible citizens of the world. So this work, my intention is for the children who never asked to be in war zones, and for the mothers who carry them, and for the future we still have the power to protect. So it's installed at the museum. You can see those are the sandbags for protection, and then you can see children distraction in between. It's an installation. So thank you so much. It was a great pleasure sharing with you my art. And
Amazing. So inspiring. Oh my God. I think this is one of the first stops. When the next time I go to Kigali, I'll make sure to come and visit your installations. It's really, and we have many questions for you in the chat as well. Thank you so much for everything that you do and for inspiring the next generation. At a young age, doing all of that already, it's really inspiring, vraiment. Alors, we had one question. Oops, sorry. Go ahead.
Yes. I was telling you that by now we are looking how we can buy our own land, because we are working in the space which is not our own space. It's from the government space, which don't give us a totally freedom to do what we want to do, even if we are on the right way. Because sometimes you want to show something, they sometimes stopping, and you can understand what I'm trying to mean. But at the end, we are looking how we can get our own land and then build our own institution. Maybe, I don't know if I still have like 1 minute, I can show you a new image at the museum we are planning to build.
Really quickly, and then we'll go to the questions. Go ahead.
1 minute. Museum. Yes, I got it. So it's called Morandi Institute of Art that we'll be holding also the museum. Morandi, it's a response to in our culture, when you say Muramahoro, which means are you at peace, the elder respond to you, Yego Morandi, which means, oh, you also had peace. So it's called Morandi as a reflection of wishing all of us to have peace. So this institution, you can see it's gonna be having a museum in Gabon, 500 meters square. We have gallery, we have library, we have an art residency, an art studio and cafe and an amphitheater, and then what we call a Maholo courtyard. So if I can show you, this is the dream that we have. You know,
That's
Madam
amazing.
said, your dream must exceed the capacity to achieve them. We don't have land yet, we don't have money yet, but I hope this institution will be built here. So where we're gonna be having such kind of place where people can come and visit the memory spaces through art, libraries where they can do research, and of course, artists gonna have their space of creation. So maybe if you have someone who you know that might be supporting us, please help us to let the story be heard everywhere, so we can have this dream built in our continent. So thank you so much. It
Perfect.
was a pleasure.
Thank you. And Nathaniel just said, you need to dream big. May your
Yes.
aspirations bear fruit. This is a wonderful
Yes.
message for you. Yes, so we had questions for the first two panelists, Lawal and Ojumu. And I know actually there was the first question by Nathaniel. Is the Museum of Black Civilization in Dakar helping to break that pattern / mold that you were mentioning earlier? Maybe Lawal or Ojumu would like to respond to Nathaniel.
All right. I think I will just do it. Yeah. So thank you very much for that question. I mean, and I think I've, just script something, in the comment section for him. So, I mean, because I don't really know the particular museum, is talking about, or what I would just say is, generally, I think all the museum in Africa, they are, recentering African perspective, and they're also providing, modern technology that is equipped, for, restitution of stolen African, artifacts. So that is what I can say for now. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Jackie had many questions for Ngabo. First of all, thank you for the great effort to document and make our history alive. Thinking about it at your age, your young age, gives hope for our culture, for our future. Super proud of you. But she also wanted to know, I'm very happy to learn that there is a linkage to education institutions because there are great knowledge catchment areas for global citizens. But I remember there was a specific question for you. Oh yeah, she says, please explain more about the extent to which modern museums can be understood as relics of colonialism. So this is maybe for the three panelists. And how that this model contrasts with traditional African approaches in preserving and transmitting history. I know there was some response from Lowell, but if somebody wants to react to Jackie's comments.
Is it me who's supposed to respond this or
So I
somebody
think
else?
it's for all of you.
Okay.
Yeah. Which modern museum
She
can be understood as relics of colonialism, and how this model contrasts with the traditional African approaches in preserving and transmitting history.
I think if I can make an artistical comment or a Pan-African comment on this, so it's time now to understand that time has changed, and then, but like you find like museums in Africa, if I can see in my own perspective, they are not going with time. It's like they are still based on the past instead of just thinking how to shape the future. So I think we still have norms. We still have a conversation here. We are waiting for musical instrument that has been stolen by Belgians, and then there are many vocals, but we still have those community to make music. What if we can be financing those young artists to go and collect musicians? I have a friend of mine who is currently having what we call Sound of Rwanda, where he goes around all the countries to collect those musical that we are claiming to be collecting from Belgians or somewhere else. They're meeting the museums here. They are always telling us, oh no, we are still looking for artifact that has stolen that is in Berlin. We are waiting for their response, but we still have artists who can do the same way of the things, even if we need them, of course. But at the end, we don't have to be thinking the reason why we don't have rich museums can be related to colonialism or something. We still have good artists who can just pave the way of the new adventure, even if it's not our culture. But I think it's a way we can learn from the Westerners and then try to create a new way of a voice through museums. So I think that's what I can just respond. So I saw there is another question.
Yes,
She
she
asked
also
me,
asked,
Ngabo, do you document stories? Okay.
do you document
Okay, you can.
stories of Rwandans from different backgrounds or mostly genocide survivors?
I'm an artist, so it's depend with the topic. Like by now, the presentation I'm gonna show, it's an installation that's called Broken Pieces United. Broken Pieces United is a story based on Rwandan community after the 1994 genocide. You know, for the people who lived here, they choose the President Kagame asked them to the RPA soldiers to not seek revenge. So after not seeking revenge, children of perpetrators and children of survivors or survivors themselves, they tried, even if they were too broken, they find a place of just being united, even if they were all broken. Because if your father is in prison, you are broken, of course. If my mother or my family is buried in genocide memorials, it's mean I'm broken too. But we choose to have the same identity. So we began narrating the stories regard two communities, the perpetrators, survivors, and the people who lived and who came from out at the end of the day. But by now, I have another project that I'm currently working on that's called Amashami ya Twatwana, which means the branch of those children. After genocide, we had more than 300,000 survivors, children who orphans with no guidance, with no father, no mother. So now when you observe very well, now they are leaders of our country. They are mayor of the city. They are leading the nation. They are one of us who are building a nation. And then they have children by now. So it's a book photo of a family, a portrait for a family for the survivors. But at the end, with a message to the world they wish their children can live in that is totally different to what they live in. So maybe that book will be presented worldwide in the museums, but that's where I'm currently working on by collecting stories of different people. Yeah.
Amazing. How many projects are you working on? Wow, this is
for now I think I'm working on I think it's 7 project film.
Okay.
It's a lot because of financial barriers. I wish I can have money to do the same. I should be producing men and men, but I still have challenge. You need money to go. Nobody who's supporting your project except Art for Memories has been supported by BLD, Development Bank of Rwanda, and Ibuka as well, because they helped me to get access to survivors. But not yet the money to support my project personally. I still sell an artwork, and then after selling an artwork, I have to invest in another new project.
Good. So that's a good message for our participants today. If you hear about any funding, options that we can share with King Ngabo, please
or an
don't
exhibition
hesitate
space.
to.
If there's a place to exhibit, it's not about only help. If there is an art gallery, I can sell my art and then do something back home.
With that,
I can sell my work, not only about only supporting even any way possible.
Perfect. Yeah. The message is well. So, do we have questions for Lawal? Lawal is applauding. Or Ojumu? Any questions in the chat that maybe I had missed? Somebody mentioned the Mungo Park discovered the river Niger. But I think Lawal has already responded to that.
Yes, I have responded to that. Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And if you have questions also, somebody is raising their hand. Go ahead, Folasade.
Okay, so thank you very much. Mine is just to add more. First, to appreciate the three speakers, Lawal, Bukola, and King Ngabo. My family in Rwanda, my husband and my children are living in Rwanda while I'm in Nigeria. Yeah. The truth is, we need to rethink museum in the African context. The modern museum we have today, just like Lawal said, is the leftover of colonialism. And he mentioned a lot of how Africans present our own expression of museum. We am from Osun State. The Osun Grove is our own living museum in my state. And until we start telling our stories, just like Ngabo mentioned in his submission, the other people will tell our stories for us, and they will tell it to suit their own narrative. We, just like he said, and it caught my attention, when you go to public museum today, it is what I saw when I was growing up in Jos in the early 80s. Those the relics there is what is still applicable today. So what are we doing to change the narrative? I got a sponsorship to study in Germany. And it will amaze you that some of our music, a German came to Nigeria in the 80s and he collected our music. And World Music Center in Germany today is holding our musical instruments, our music, the sound of Kanuri people of Nigeria, Borno State in Nigeria, is there in the museum. In Nigeria, we cannot even because we are rethinking what we should do to have a living museum. So we should shift our attention from what we see, the building. We should start rethinking how we see museums. And secondly, and another thing is, we should catch our children young. In Africa, our parents tend to say, okay, when you study medicine, law, that is when you have studied good courses, especially in Nigeria, doctors, lawyers, engineers. When we see our children performing well in arts, we should encourage them. By so doing, we raise generations that will retell the African stories that will suit our own continent. Another thing is, we should give the gift of visiting museums. We tend to buy cakes. We tend to buy cakes. We tend to put efforts in flowers. That is not our culture. We have our elders that are the reservoir of our indigenous knowledge. How many of us visit them? Ngabo is doing his own. How many of us? Thank God that is even collaborating with schools to bring these memories alive. How many people are doing it? And he said something so germane that I find so important. We should not make it rigid. Preservation. When preservation is rigid, then it will, when we visit year in, year out, it's still going to be the same thing. Why don't we make it flexible?
Oh, I think we can't hear you, Folasade. It just cut the last part. Why can't we make it? Maybe we have a... Oh, yes, you're back. Go ahead. Mm-hmm.
So who are collecting these stories? Who are keeping these stories in archives that we can go back to later to see that, okay, this is what time in Nigeria this happened. So I'm appealing to museum practitioner. I'm a librarian. I work in the library, and I know the same problem that is afflicting my library is what is afflicting most memory institutions in Africa. It is almost similar problem we have. Lack of adequate funding, lack of interest. It is not our culture. Visiting museum is not our culture. So how do we get people to start rethinking museum to suit the current reality? And digital intervention, I've been following Ngabo on LinkedIn. I see what the effort is putting in. How many young people are doing this in Africa? Digital transformation is what we have. And labeling, provenance, just what is said, what Ojumu and Lawal said. When you misinterpret people's story, you have misrepresented them. Then we should start training. We should start training museum practitioner to see it. Once you have passion for your job, I think there's a lot of changes that can take place. But unfortunately, most of us in Africa, we study these courses just to go to the university. How many are passionate about this? So we need to start, if we want our memories to be alive for generations yet unborn, then we should start doing things differently. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your comments. I know Jackie wanted to say something, and maybe Omar? Omar, you wanted to intervene after Jackie?
No, I know we are with Dr. Nathaniel, who is part of the Africana Studies. Africana Studies is one of the biggest department that or the entry window for non-Africans to know the Africa. Since he's an expert in that field, I was wondering if he wanted to share with us what he thinks this study or department, the whole department philosophy, responds to some of these asked questions.
Perfect. So we'll take Jackie's comment, and then we'll go to Nathaniel. Jackie?
Okay, thank you so much. I'm really happy, and thank you so much, Omar and Inkuru Library family, for inviting us and connecting us to the wonderful resources that we are having today in this meeting. It is truly an honor and a privilege, and congratulations upon holding this wonderful discussion. Just a few comments. I think I just engaged so actively because I love the topic. I love the way you guys put it. I love your backgrounds. Oh my God, everything is wonderful. Thank you, all of you. I learned that storytelling, preservation of our memories and our history is a very big part of what we do and a great resource to the human development wherever people are. So of recent, I was writing my book, and very soon it's gonna be out. So be alert. I'll be sharing with you very soon. The coming soon will be out in a number of days. So I learned that storytelling takes us back to who we are. Sometimes we are forced to visit our past, the wonderful past, the beautiful one, and maybe the harsh past, the resilient past that pushes us forward or makes us bounce back with more energy. I'm sure, Ngabo, all of you guys have seen that part. Sometimes I would call Omar and I was like, I mean, this is becoming too much. I was writing, but now I'm facing situations I faced, decades ago, and they're becoming so raw, so fresh. So, but they became so inspirational that I took very strong and bold decisions that have made me better and better every day. So it's very important for societies, for communities to document their work, to visit them again, to review their history and look at who we are. Who are we? Where are we heading? What should we do better? And how best can we partner in all this? Because your history, my history, finally will become our history. So thank you for the opportunity. I had the opportunity to learn from all the legends that you guys are, and I'm really happy. And this is something that has grown since I was young. I love journaling big time. Every time I'm journaling. So when I visit it now at this age, I love it. I treasure it because I didn't know even what it is gonna translate into. But when I look into it now, when I visit my work, oh my God, it's amazing. It gives me a sense of where I came from, gives me a sense of who I have become. And I can't wait to share with you when the book is out. Keep in touch. I love your work. I'm a supporter of what you do, and I believe in it wholesomely. Thank you so much, Omar, for the invitation.
Thank you so much, Jackie, and congratulations in advance for your book. And we can't wait to see it
You're welcome.
when it's going to be out.
Thank you.
Congratulations. And
Thank
we'll have Nathaniel take the mic. Oops, I don't know what's wrong with my camera. I think it's the sun. Yes, Nathaniel?
Sure, yeah. Omar, so your question is about the Department of Africana Studies and its role in memory work, yes? You are
You're muted, Omar.
How does the Africana studies translate some of the challenges mentioned here? How do you reflect it within your studies and in the classes or in the departments in general?
well, we would like to have somebody who could teach a class on museums and memory. I mean, that would be wonderful. I think the issues of memory and memorialization, they raise up the issue of um, one, not waiting on big states or authorities or politicians to begin the work of memory keeping. That one can actually go to one's network, one's family, and that part of memory work for me is also giving people their recognition before they are gone, giving them their flowers, so to speak, before they are gone. We shouldn't wait for people to pass on before we recognize their importance and record their memories and celebrate them for the life that they lived. So that's been something that's very important to me. And reflecting on this in light of the broader political climate in the U.S., as you no doubt, many of you are no doubt aware, the war on Black history. And that is also a war on African history. Because what they would like to do is to paint a mythological picture of the United States as an outpost of white Christian civilization, and they would like to erase the not only the atrocities that were committed, but the struggles to open up a space in the U.S. where Black history could be remembered. And I'm struck in teaching African history and in studying this for the last 20 years and participating in popular struggles around it, that the all of the activists who participated in that linked Black liberation in the US to remembering history. And that remembering of history was linked to remembering Africa. And so restoring the image of Africa and fighting against the negative collective representations of Africa in Western culture, Western society is very, very important to this work. So one of the things that we did in the past few years, we're now celebrating, we'll be celebrating we just celebrated our 55th anniversary as a department. So we brought some of the original student activists who founded the department. We interviewed them and we recorded their memories and we then had some students who went to the archives and uncovered some of their activities as well. So we're trying to create a little department archive of how we were created because we don't take for granted our existence. And even though we are in New York State, we know that departments like ours are under attack throughout the United States, especially in Republican-controlled states. And so as long as we have academic freedom to do so, it's very imperative for us to continue to make the case for what we're doing as a form of memory work, and to keep track of and record our own history as a department, so it can continue to inform future faculty members.
Thank you so much, Dr. Matthews, for this intervention. I know we're getting close to the end. I would like to know if the panelists would like to add something before we end it, maybe a final thought about this experience.
Yes, please.
Ojumu?
I would like to say something.
Yes, go ahead, Lawal.
So I would like to say something about what King Ngabo said about we keep clamoring for, I mean, what they have stolen, whatnot, and there are still people that are, in Africa, they can make this music and all that. Now, so I just want to be biased when I want to, actually reply to him, and it's not a debate because documentation is one of the problems we have in Africa as a whole, right? Some of all this old music are not being documented, so probably we don't really know the sound of all these things. However, whether the sounds are in museum in Europe or North America, I don't know, right? And for me, I've been working on sound provenance, right? Taking all this time, researching about all these towns, the Yoruba culture of West Africa, right? And we have like a lot of gaps, right? And those gaps stem from no materials one can actually study from, right? So this has been like problem. Then secondly, funding, right? We all know that in Africa, when visiting, elders to actually extract stories, we need to, come bearing gifts, right? Of course, I mean, it's just courtesy, like show respect and everything. So, I mean, all these things just boils down to no documentation and funding. Then to also replied what Madam Shadi, right, said about us, taking our children to the museum and all. Even the museum, themselves, they are not, doing what will also make people also visit the museum. Iago said we are freeze in time, which I totally agreed with him, right? By now, we should have digitalized most of all these artifacts, right? And let me say this, in the next, let's say maybe like 20 to 30 years, the Europeans will return this artifact to us because they've digitalized it. They have add sound, cue, a lot of things. They've made it in the AI, like I mean, just done everything they need to do to keep the digitalization to themselves. They will now return the artifacts to us. By then, I don't want to use the word useless, but of course, the artifact will be useless because nobody wants to come to the museum anymore because of number one, even the structure. I mean, the Gen Zs, the millennials, with this about structures, right? So if the structures, if they are not beautiful for taking pictures, for snapping, I mean, it will not attract anyone. So all these things again boils down to uh, digitalization and chronic underfunding of the African Museum, right? So I think if we now have the funding and proper things are being done, right, in place to, digitalize all these museums, right? I think that then we now know that, okay, we are ready to take our stories back. But for now, we should keep trying, and probably maybe one day, someday, we have the dream, we have been clamoring for. Thank you very much.
Thank you. That's a Perfect final word for this webinar. Ojumu, would you like to say something before we end it? Or maybe Lawal said it all.
Yes, Lawal said it all. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for being part of this conversation. King Ngabo, I don't know if you would like to say a final word before we end it.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure being with you today. I hope when you come back, when you visit Rwanda, you're going to pass by the museum.
Thank you. And I'm already connected through LinkedIn now. We're connected. Thank you for the invitation.